Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Archeryshack Shoptalk. I'm Jeremy.
I'm TJ.
And we are on podcast number 64. Glad y'all are with us. If it's your first time tuning in, we do these every week. We also have a live feed most of the time on Thursday nights. And sometimes we have a video that comes out on Sunday if we have time to make one. So,
Yeah.
Thanks for checking us out. We are the Archery located in Anderson, South Carolina. Just give us a holler if there's anything we can do for you. We can make you a bowstring, work on your bow, make some arrows, the whole 9 yards. But we generally come on here and just answer questions and talk about random archery stuff. And that's it. So thank you for being with us. One question that I seen actually in the Friends of the Archeryshack group, but several people answered before we could even get to it. Somebody said, what was the light-up quiver that we talk about sometimes? And they were talking about the Hex Light Quiver by Trophy Ridge. We sell a ton of them, and they actually have two different lights. One shines down. It's a green light on the arrows, and one shines out the top. So if you're walking in the woods, you can half see. But it's a good quiver. So whoever asked it already, I'm sure, seen the comments, but just in case you didn't. Getting our volume fixed a little bit there so we can hear ourselves. But that was last year one of our best-selling quivers. This year we've sold a lot of those, and we've also kind of got on to the Conquest Talon quivers. They don't have a light or anything, but still I like the way it's designed. But somebody else asked, is the Whisker Biscuit a bad arrow wrist? Heck no.
No.
The Whisker Biscuit, I would put up against any rest out there. There's arguments about a drop away and it's out of the way and not causing drag on the arrow and blah, 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 blah. But for a bare bone, can't beat it hunting rest, that Whisker Biscuit, as long as you're not real jerky as the shot's coming through the biscuit, because it's still grabbing the arrow, you're fine. But I think the advantages of your arrow can't fall off the bow, because even some dropaways now are not self-contained, and your arrow's flipping and flopping. And technically, you could even be shooting super downhill, and the arrow could raise up off of that dropaway and cause a bad shot, where that biscuit, that joker's got it.
Yeah.
It ain't going nowhere. For a kid, it's great. For a hunter, it's great. And as long as you got decent form and they're not snatching right after the shot, I don't see a problem with it. We still sell a lot of them.
We do. I think we sell, for every biscuit we sell a drop away. So
it's 50-50.
It's 50-50.
But it's like just the biscuit's 50% of it.
Yep.
And then all the drop aways are the other 50%.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's hard to beat a Whisker Biscuit.
It is.
I even had somebody ask me today that bought a bow that had a biscuit on it. Is this an okay rest? Is this junk? I'm like, absolutely not. I would shoot it in a heartbeat myself.
Yeah, especially on a hunting bow.
But anyway, just wanted to holler at that. Even the Pig Man several years ago,
he shot one out to 100 yards, I think.
Yeah, he did a video, and he's like, I'm going to shoot this thing, and at 100 yards, he stacked them. Mm-hmm. And I think anybody could do fine with a Whisker Biscuit.
Yeah.
What is our current favorite string material? We make a lot of strings here. We ship them all over the country and all over the world, really. We sent just this week, we had 2 that went to England. One went to Australia. One went to Mexico, and one went somewhere else in South America. But anyway, and then a ton went to the United States, of course. But my go-to is still the BCY X99. It's been around a few years now. It's definitely not an old material.
No.
But it's stout. I've put it on plenty of my bows and had no trouble. Lots of people still shoot 452X, which is an older material now. We kind of converted. We try to keep a good bit of random. We got Mercury, we got X99, we got 452, 454, all this stuff. But we kind of converted from 452 to 454 last year, because 454 is sort of the newer 452 with a little bit better ingredients in it.
Yeah.
But, there's not one that I hate, but if I had to pick one, it'd be the X99.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. We've also got some bloodline that we've Only bad thing is you don't hear us talk much about it is because we haven't had time to build a set to put on our bows to really.
We've had a few people want the bloodline, and we hadn't put any of them on our personal bows. But we're tinkering. We can definitely build you. We got ordered all the colors. We can build you a set out of the VEC 99 bloodline. They're a newer company on the market, been out a couple years. But if you're interested in that, we can do it. But so far, I mean, obviously it's a decent material. We just hadn't tested it personally, so we will.
One day.
Do we prefer a wrist sling or no wrist sling? I still shoot one on my hunting bow most of the time, and I used to shoot one on all my bows until it got to where like it would hit the riser when I'd shoot. It may always make me feel like something was loose, so I quit shooting one on my tournament bow. But I don't have, I mean, either way is fine. I still like doing especially a hunting bow, a camouflage hunting bow, and a guy comes in and is like, I want to do this color pattern. Let's just say green and black, flow green and black. And we'll do like the fluorescent green and black wrist sling and the strings and some arrows and like get it all matching, and that wrist sling makes it pop. But I mean, of course, that's not why you're getting it. You're getting it so if you accidentally drop your bow, it grabs you by the wrist. But you just got to be careful because you don't want it too tight to torque the bow.
Yep.
And you don't want it so loose that if you were to drop it, it's going to flop out, so.
I still shoot one on my hunting bow and my tournament bow. I've had one for so long through the year, ever since I've shot that. And, we've said this before, but in the shop, if we have a bow that might be on a questionable paper tune, and I can pick it up if I go to shoot it, and I say I'm gonna have a low tear, and I said, and Jeremy looked at me like, "Why you call that?" And I'm like, "Well, it don't have a wrist sling. For some reason, I tend to kind of just drop that bow a little bit, and I get a low tear. So, but I'm running one now on my tournament bow and my hunting bow. The best advice I give as far as a fit is whatever glove you're using, like if it's a real big heavyweight glove, or if it's like what we use down here, just a little bitty thin one, put your glove on and kind of adjust it to your hand in the glove. You don't want it so tight, but that way you can get to where all you got to do is just slide your hand up in there to get, to grab the grip of your bow. That's all you need.
I really like these bare bow packages we got in. They got what they call like the stiffy slings. I guess there's some kind of almost like a metal inside, so you can like put them wherever and they stay. They don't just flop down. I kind of like that because, like TJ saying, that thing could be there and you can just get your hand right in it. Some of them you got to kind of wiggle up in there, but anyway, I don't know. I still remember, I guess 2002-03 time frame. We used to order a lot of wrist slings from Paradox, and they're still around. Paradox wrist slings, and they started offering like a ton of colors. And I mean, I remember, because you just got the camo ones or the black one. That was it.
Oh, yep.
And they may have offered more back then, but I just remember meeting them at a show in 2001, and they had like 100 different colors laid out, and was like, "Here's what we can do." And I'm like, "Holy crap!" And I remember ordering colors for people and for me and everything else, and that was just the little bitty thin ones. That was just like the 2 or 3 ply braid.
Yeah.
And
now you got the big paracord stuff.
Yeah, cobra braid and all this stuff, and it's wild. But wrist slings and before that I remember shooting leather ones like a long time ago. But anyway, either way is fine. Yeah. So not a big deal. How often should I change my crossbow strings? I shoot a Barnett Jackal. That's all depending on how much you shoot. Like if I was a crossbow guy and I shot one a decent amount and then hunted with it, just knowing what I know, I'd change them every year. Yeah. Because like I'm going to just guess at numbers here, but let's say we took in 120 crossbows this year. I bet 50 or 60% of them at least came in blown up because people didn't maintain their string. Yeah. Like literally there's a Jackal right there, matter of fact. blown all to pieces. Still got the original string on it. Probably been on there for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So, like, for me, I'd change it every year unless I absolutely did not shoot it but like 3 times and make, you know what I mean? Like, and then I'd change it every 2 or 3 years. But it ain't no joke. You can get hurt. I mean, you can straight up get hurt, and people do not realize it. There's a lot of power behind those things.
Yeah. I think, you know, he's got a Barnett Jackal. I think normally, I can't remember. You can, if you've still got the owner's manual, you can look in there. It gives you a rough estimate on how many shots. But, you know, I always tell people in the shop, about every 250 to 300 shots, you need to replace the string on a crossbow. And they look at me like I'm funny or like I'm just bat crazy. And I'm like, well, it's not like a compound bow where you can shoot tens of thousands of shots on those strings. This thing has got,
it's violent. I mean,
it's violent.
There's no way to, and it's rubbing against a rail. And make sure you use rail lube. What I would say probably going to happen is if you're going to shoot it a decent amount, play it in the yard, and then hunt with it, your center serving is going to go before anything. So, like, either have a backup string, just a string, or take it to a shop and get it reserved. And that's, let's say, you know, every 6 months or something. I'm just throwing, if you're shooting it like all the time. I mean, not like every day, because then it's going to be even more. But, I mean, as far as me personally, you know, I'm a compound guy. But like I say, if I was a crossbow guy and I got it out, you know, and shot it with my buddies or my kids or whatever every now and then, I'm going to restring it every year. And I'm probably going to, like I say, that serving is going to go before anything, because there's a ton of pressure and it's sliding right across that metal rail. So that's my advice. I know there's people that's going to say, well, I only shoot it 10 times before I hunt with it. You can get a year or 2 or 3 out of that. Yeah. Just keep an eye on it. But it's just think about, you know, it's constantly under tension. Those cables especially are always under tension. And then, you know, wear and tear when you shoot it. So don't let it blow up on you, you know, because it'll get somebody hurt. Oh, yeah. You can lose. Keep your strings waxed and keep your rail lubed. And on rail lube, I would say about every 5 shots, put some rail lube on there. Yeah, because it ain't going to hurt anything if you really lay it to it. It ain't. But it is going to hurt something if you leave it bone dry or almost bone dry, and it just frays that serving all to pieces. So, yeah, we've seen them come in where they were almost dripping wet with some kind of rail lube, and then we've seen them come in and dry as a bone. We always know if somebody gets a new string and they're back a month or 2 later, well, their center serving broke or possibly their string broke. Yeah. And there's no lubrication whatsoever on that center serving. Did you put rail lube on this? What's rail lube? Okay, that's our problem. Yep. But anyway, feathers versus veins. Somebody wants us to talk about. There's not many feather people out there. No. So, probably in the 90s, feathers were big. I mean, I remember back then it was a 4-inch vein or the 4-inch feather, even the 5-inch. And feathers were sort of the thing, I guess, because they were faster and blah, 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 blah. I've always been a feather guy. Probably always will be. And I know they're more maintenance. You got to refletch them more often and all that. But especially if you shoot with TJ. TJ will tear them straight up. They just going to throw that out there. They're a little quicker. I feel like they steer. If you were to, I don't have any scientific analysis in front of me, and I'll try to find it possibly for another podcast. But if you were to take a 2-inch blazer vein versus a 2-inch, say, Gateway razor feather, the razor feather's got a ton more drag than the vein does. You know, the vein's just a static piece of plastic sitting there flopping around. The feather, you know, as it propels out of the bow, it lays back, and then after the acceleration, it fluffs back out. And True Flight calls it like it's Velcro to the air almost. But there's this, you know, even if you got a rest that a vein's kind of hitting, a feather probably won't. You know, or if you're a clearance issue, or I don't know. And I'm not saying your bow shouldn't be tuned to that to start with, but I just feel like feathers are more forgiving. You need to treat them if you're going to shoot them in the rain, of course. But I like feathers. The statistics say that a feather is faster out to 42 yards. Then from 42 to 62 yards, pretty much a feather and a vane of equal length is going to match each other for speed. And then past 62, the vane is faster. But not many people, and I don't care about speed. I'm just throwing out stuff that some analysis that True Flight put out there. I guess it's still on their website, but if you go to True Flight Feathers, they got a ton of slow motion data, speed data, all this stuff that's worth a read. But we don't do many feathers anymore. They are louder.
Yep.
You know, they're louder than the vane, and there's something to be said for that. But and you have to replace them more because if you stack arrows, if you go out and shoot a 6-arrow group, you're going to probably tear up some feathers. But
yeah,
we as a shop do 98% vanes, and of those 98%, most of them are blazer vanes for no other reason than just blazer vanes are the most popular, and nobody asks for anything else.
Yep.
We keep a few AAE vanes in stock and a few flex fletch and this, that, and other, but most of the time, unless some guy comes in and says, hey, I want to try something different, I want to try a 4-fletch, or I want to try a low profile, or I want to try this or that, it's just a blazer. So I'd say test with it. I mean, my best fletching test advice is to take, if you have the capability, take a dozen shafts and, like, let's say, all right, I'm going to test 2-inch feathers, blazers, an AAE max stealth, and a flex fletch silent night or something. That's just an example. So I'm going to take 3 arrows. And then ultimately, my way of testing that would be to go out there at between 60 and 100 yards, shoot the whole dozen, document it, like on a piece of paper, measure the group size, write it down, even, plot your points. But do that over a couple of days. I mean, don't just because you could be having a bad day shooting, and you might, so after, let's just say a 3-day period of shooting these a bunch of times, then, look at your paper and say, all right, on average, my feathers are shooting a 3 1/4 inch group. The blazers are shooting a 3 5/8 inch group. This, that, and then go from there. But then there's more to it than that. If you really want to test a straight fletch, an offset 2-degree fletch, a helical 2-3 degree. Test all your different helicals and offset, because each bow likes something different. And I mean, in general, if a guy comes in, in general, we know what to tell them. If you're a hunter, and if you might want to shoot a fixed blade broadhead at some point, we're going to put some helical on it and offset it 2 or 3 degrees, and that's just in general. We're going to roll with it. But if you want to get real down nitty gritty, you need to go out there and play with it, get your own fletching jig, and do all that. But anyway, so I like feathers. It's not that I dislike vanes. It's just me.
I don't know. I'm a feather guy too. I've shot blazers a bunch, and for some reason, I just keep going back to a feather.
If you've never shot feathers, I think it's worth playing with. Get your shop or get something, just to fletch you up about 3 of them even. And they will shoot a little faster, so they may hit a little higher, but just play with them, see what you think. 3-inch, 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch. I mean, a 2-inch feather with helical is plenty for a broadhead. There's a lot of drag there. So.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, Dave asked, is the FMJ a thing of the past now?
Not that I'm aware of. We've got people.
I definitely don't see as many in the past year or two, but there's still a lot of people shooting them.
Yeah.
It's still a great era, so no, not a thing of the past, but I just hadn't seen as many, or at least in our area. I mean, there may be, we're in South Carolina, Colorado, or New Mexico, or North Carolina. They may be 1 million people shooting them. Just of people coming through our shop, I didn't see as many this year shooting them as I did 2 or 3 years ago.
I didn't either, but we still get calls on a daily basis asking if we've got FMJs or FMJ components or anything like that. So,
just in case you're new and don't know, FMJ is an arrow made by Easton, and it has a carbon core with an aluminum. The outside's aluminum, so cool arrow. You know, you can sometimes get some extra weight and this, that, and the other. I mean, it's a neat arrow. So, let's see I got a list of stuff here. Best way to quiet down a bow. Usually, like string noise is one of the first things we work with.
Yeah.
You know, string leeches, which is a product Limb Saver makes. It's a little rubber gizzy you put in the string. You have to press the bow, but it'll take out any string oscillation noise. That's the most simple.
Mm-hmm.
And then, there's a million things we could talk about, like actual limb savers, which is a rubber thing that you would clamp between the limbs. You know, it'll take out some kick and vibration. The newer bows, like back in the day, I could tell a limb saver made a big difference. Now it's just very minimal.
Yeah.
But something on the string to make it not as twangy, even though most bows have a string stop now, would help. A heavier arrow, you know, the lighter the arrow, the more vibration is just going through the bow. So a heavier arrow makes it quieter.
The biggest thing on that is we probably need to know which bow it is.
Yeah, I mean, because like if it's an older bow, there's some stuff we could do versus a newer bow versus this, that, and the other. But
yeah,
just stuff like, you know, any rubber you can put on the riser will tame it. And anything, you really, cat whiskers, beaver balls, limbs, string leeches, anything you can put on the string is going to help as well. So
monkey tails, I think they've got, you know, now they've got them like the monkey tails that you see on Matthews's, on Matthews bows, and then I think
the Pine Ridge wishbone.
Yeah, the Pine Ridge wishbone. You know, those you can put on yourself. You don't have to have a press for those. You just pretty much run it through itself over the string, and you know that'll help. It's just really hard. I mean, that's a general idea, but
what is the ideal recurve draw weight for hunting? Most common we see is 45 pounds.
Yep.
Because it's heavy enough to kill a deer, but light enough to not really, really struggle for a man. But a lot of people that come in wanting to recurve it say, I just want to play in the yard, I suggest a 35 pound because even me, because I don't hardly shoot recurves enough to keep my form up, I got a 45 pounder and I want to short draw it, you know what I mean? Because I'm just not used to hitting my anchor point. But yeah, 45 is probably the most common.
Yep.
50 maybe. I mean, I know one guy shooting 55, but I'd say between 40 and 50 is where I would go with it.
Yeah, I don't think I'd go any higher than 50 myself.
Not unless you're really been shooting a lot.
Yeah.
You know. I know, what's his name, Byron Ferguson or whatever, the guy that used to be on TV all the time shooting like aspirin out of the air. He shoots a 70 pounder, but literally that's all he does for a living. So
yeah,
he can handle it. But standard knock versus G knock versus pin knock. So like standard knock's what you got in almost all your hunting arrows, that sort of thing. A G knock is a little bit skinnier. Normally you have to even in a standard size carbon, you have to put a bush in and it's a little smaller. And in a pin knock, you put a bush in with a little nipple sticking out the back and the knock fits on that pin or nipple or whatever you want to call it. So the general consensus is the smaller the knock, the better it gets out of the wind. So in other words, like a little tiny pin knock may get out of the wind a lot better than a standard knock, but the standard knock's a lot beefier, and you don't have to worry about it possibly snapping or breaking or getting hurt. So I shot pin knocks for quite a while.
I did too.
And then a bunch of people, I never had any trouble.
I didn't either.
But a couple people had problems with the pin knocks. And this is not just like one brand, just in general. Several people a couple years ago, I know their pin knock exploded when they hit the trigger and it blew the bow up or the arrow or whatever. So I kind of got scared and I went back to a standard diameter last year. But like I say, I didn't have a bit of trouble out of a pin knock. I feel like if you're shooting heavier poundage, let's say 70 and more, I'd probably steer clear of a pin knock just to be safe. But so I'm back to a standard knock personally. But I like the little gold tip AccuNots because they're short. Kind of like if you know about the little FS Tuna Knox by QAD. So they'd still get out of the wind pretty decent, but they're stubby and fat and stout. So like you'd have to really slap it with an arrow to break it. But I don't have a problem with any of them. I mean,
I hadn't either. I mean, I shot pin knocks out of my Black Eagle Magnums. I've shot them out of my PS27s, and I don't know. I got to talking to some guy. I can't remember who it was now, but we was talking about it, and he's like, "You think about it." He said, "There's not a whole lot of meat between where the throat of that knot meets that nipple or the pin on the pin bushing from your string." And he said, "You think about it. The more you shoot," he said, "all that force is pushing right there on that point." And I got to thinking, and it kind of made me start thinking a little bit. I'm like, he's got a point.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I changed my knocks out or stuff like that, you could still, I mean, it just got in my head and I switched back.
The same way with me, but any of them work fine. Somebody said, how can I make my current arrows heavier? You got to be careful to not underspine your arrow, but a lot of arrows you could either, of course, just have a heavier screw-in tip, or they make a tool that you can actually add according to what area you're shooting, but most can. You can add a weight to the back of the insert, and it's a big long Allen wrench, like a 3-foot Allen wrench. It goes down the back of the arrow, so that's pretty much it. But like I say, you need to look at the spine chart because most of the time you're going to bump up to a heavier spine to shoot a heavier tip.
Yeah.
And somebody else said, can you shoot with your sunglasses on? I think TJ can, right?
I shoot with my glasses.
I can't do it with my sunglasses because the way I anchor, I'll see right through the bridge of that sun and it'll mess with me. So I can't, but.
And I think the big part, I've shot with my sunglasses on before. If I'm in the bright sun, like right now with the time change the way it is, if we was to go out here and, step out up under the porch out here and try to shoot, I mean, you can't really shoot because the sun's right in your eyeballs. And I've shot a little bit with my sunglasses on out here, and, it's a little bit different than my regular glasses. But I've seen a lot of people do it. I mean, you see it on the TV shows, people wearing sunglasses.
It's just one of them you got to test it. I mean, they make shooting glasses that don't have a bridge. It's all glass. So, but well, we'll get off here and thank y'all for tuning in. If you need anything from us, all our contact stuff is in the description. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time.
See ya.